1 minute warning. 1 minute warning. Right, 30 seconds and then we'll be going live. Okay. Good afternoon, good early evening, and welcome to East Devon District Council's Extraordinary Cabinet Meeting on the 26th of November 2025. I'm your Chair, Councillor John Loudon, and I'd like to welcome anyone watching the meeting via the live streaming, plus also welcome my colleagues in the room. We'll now start the meeting by doing a roll call of committee members here present, but before we do that, I want to thank everybody who has come along at this unusual hour of 4 o'clock for this meeting, particularly those of you who've got other responsibilities, be they caring or work commitments. So thank you for adapting those so you can be here. So I'm now going to hand over to Amanda as the DSO to conduct the roll call, please, Amanda.
Thank you, Chair. And if, once I call your name, you can also let me know if you have any declarations, please, councillors. Starting with yourself, Councillor Loudon.
I'm present. I have no declarations. Thank you.
Councillor Hayward.
Present. Thank you, Amanda. And I'll speak today as a councillor who also serves on Devon County Council, and I'm mindful of the responsibilities that come with this dual role. I have declared my interest in accordance with the Code of Conduct and received a dispensation to participate in this debate. I understand this dispensation relates only to the management of interest and does not override the legal requirement to avoid bias or predetermination. While I may have previously discussed or considered aspects of local government reorganisation in another forum, I confirm I have not predetermined my position. I remain open to the arguments presented today and will consider all relevant information before forming a final view. This is a significant matter for our communities, and I'm committed to ensuring my contribution to this debate is fair, transparent and in line with the principles of good governance. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hookway.
Present, my declaration is as follows. I speak today as a councillor who also serves on Devon County Council, and I am mindful of the responsibilities that come with this dual role. I have declared my interest in accordance with the Code of Conduct and have received a dispensation to participate in this debate. I understand that this dispensation relates only to the management of interests and does not override the legal requirement to avoid bias or predetermination. While I may have previously discussed or considered aspects of local government organisation in another forum, I confirm that I have not predetermined my position. I remain open to the arguments presented today and will consider all relevant information before forming a final view. This is a significant matter for our communities, and I am committed to ensuring that my contribution to this debate is fair, transparent and in line with the principles of good governance. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Present, no declarations for me, thank you.
Councillor Jeffries. Not here. Councillor Young.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Ledger.
Present and no declarations. Thank you, Amanda.
And our acting vice chair, Councillor Todd. Olive.
Present and no declarations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm your quorum.
Thank you, Amanda, for that. Thank you, colleagues. So we go to the agenda and agenda item 1, which is apologies. We have some apologies, Amanda. Do you want me to
We
read
do.
them? Right.
We have 2 apologies. The leader, Councillor Paul Arnott, and Councillor Sam Hawkins. And while I'm on the mic, Chair, if it's all right to ask if there's any councillors outside of Cabinet that wish to declare an interest, please. No? Okay, thank you.
I've just been advised that Councillor Jeffries sends his apologies. He's got other business.
Thanks, Chair. That was the one I was going to proffer. Thank you.
Councillor Goodman, are you logged in? Yes, I am. Can you put your mic on? Thank you.
Having taken advice from the monitoring officer, I do not have an interest in the item, but as my son is an employee of KPMG, I want to make it clear that my son had no involvement in the preparation of the business case, I am not in any way biased as a result of his employment. I'm coming to the matter with an open mind and will only make my decisions, but I will make decisions here, after considering all arguments and evidence presented during the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman. Did I see any other hands go up at this point? No? Oh, Councillor Gazzard.
Yes, Chair. I just wanted to give apologies for Anne and Matt Hall, please.
Thank you. So that's Anne and Matt Hall. Apologies, please. Thank you. Does that conclude item 1, our apologies? Yeah. So we then move on to item 2, declarations of interest, which we've dealt with. Agenda item 3, public speaking. I'm not aware of any public speaking. No, we have no public speaking. So we then move on to agenda item 4, matters of urgency. I'm not aware of any. No. Okay. Agenda item 5, confidential or exempt items. Again, I'm not aware of any items for that, and I'm not seeing anybody telling me otherwise. So that takes us on to agenda item 6, which is the reason we're here, and that is local government reorganisation, the full proposal. Now, before I invite officers, and I think the first officer that I will be inviting will be Andy Wood, our Director of Place, who, as you know, has been heavily involved in not just representing and advising and leading in this council, but also across other councils as well in this work. So I will invite Andy to speak to the item in a minute. But before I do that, I'm afraid I'm going to crave your indulgence, because I feel that I ought to set out the framework for why we're here and the decisions that are in front of us, not just in Cabinet, but we'll also then subsequently come on to a later discussion in Council in a couple of hours' time. So bear with me as I run through this. The Cabinet report that you will have all seen by now sets out the milestones and decisions that this Council has made during this year, as officers have worked alongside their colleagues in the 6 other district councils and at Tor Bay, and this has been to develop the Council's preferred 451 LGR model, and that's now otherwise known as Reimagining Devon. And again, you'll have seen the documentation for the full proposal and the executive summary that's been circulated. The cross-district and Tor Bay consensus of the original working assumption that Devon could be structured within a 451 model has, through research, evidence, analysis and evaluation, been demonstrated to be one that, when considered and taking full account of the government's 6 reorganisation criteria, comes out as the future local government shape and structure that best would serve Devon's residents and businesses, as far as this proposal is concerned. Together, we have reimagined Devon without either geographic or organisational bias, and without political parties. All of this, I think, is a very significant set of achievements. We have demonstrated that through having unity of purpose and by pooling each council's experienced professional officers, and along with using data that all 11 Devon councils have jointly shared. It's easy for you to laugh, less easy for me to say. We can and have developed a future Devon-wide local government model that will deliver better services, unlock investment, and provide each area of Devon with stronger voices. I believe that the work that our officers and those of the other districts in Torbay over this year have delivered leads to a robust and convincing set of arguments and evidence in support of the broader 451 model. This detail has been supported by the strong work and advice from Pixel Financial Management and from KPMG, a set of management consultants. Our 451 proposal answers and fully addresses the government's 6 LGR criteria and applies these to frame the future shape and structure for Devon's local government reorganisation. Indeed, our work has demonstrated that the 451 Plus model is the most favourable option of all. This 451 Plus model would build upon the base case of 451 and would, if the Secretary of State were to use his discretion, be the best of all options for Devon. Our 451 Plus model goes beyond that by providing the most balanced of all the proposals that any Devon council is putting forward under LGR. And this proposal shows how Devon's services can be more efficiently and effectively delivered and structured. The Reimagining Devon approach not only supports a set of Devon unitary structures that are balanced, it also facilitates a broader balanced approach across the Southwest Peninsula that could deliver a mayoral strategic authority. The Reimagining Devon unitaries would be able to sit alongside such an MSA in a proportional and coherent way. I strongly believe that the 7 district councils, and until most recently Torbay, have worked diligently and collaboratively to develop a shape and structure for this county's future local government, and this demonstrates several things that no other Devon submissions do. And these are, and I'm just going to touch on 3, and there are others I'm sure other people could identify. First of all, better forecasted financial savings, and this, as we know, is something that the Treasury will be looking very carefully and closely at. Secondly, it delivers better councillor to electors ratios, and I think this is important for trying to maintain democratic accountability and local links. And then thirdly, better unity of purpose across and amongst all 7 district councils. And this shows that by working collaboratively and purposefully, we can reach better outcomes as opposed to doing things on our own. Reimagining Devon is that collaborative outcome. No other Devon Council's proposals have the strength of such broad non-political collaborations. And I will at some point after we've heard some other interventions by members in the room and from our officers, I will be coming back to formally move the recommendations. So thank you for listening. Thank you for indulging me. And I think perhaps at this point, I am going to Andy Wood, Director of Place, to speak to our proposals. Andy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. So I'm just going to give a little bit of background and context, cover off 4 main points and then come back to the recommendations. I think probably the first point to mention, it's worth remembering that this time last year, local government reorganisation wasn't even on the radar in many respects. It wasn't until December 2024 when the English Devolution White Paper was published, which anticipated the abolition of the current 2-tier system of local government, which then set off the chain of events that leads us to today. Okay. problem with the cameras though, but shall I keep going? I'll keep going.
Sorry, they wanted you to,
Shall we just hang on 1 second while we try and deal with the technical aspect? Because what you don't need, Andy, is the irritation and frustration of trying to deal with technical stuff.
He said welcome.
it's not acknowledging you.
That's not unusual.
Andy, you may have to come up to the top table at some point, I'm afraid.
Sorry, I feel awful. I'll leave the camera.
Thank you.
It won't be, it'll be on us now. It's still not.
So just for people watching outside, we're just trying to make sure that the camera can
happy
pick
not to
up
be on
on
camera.
our director of place.
It's not.
Because of the technical difficulties, we're just having to recite our director of place. Which I'm not sure he's really happy with. But, and so apologies, Andy, just sort of take your time, settle in so that you can give this your full attention, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. So I'll just pick up from where I was. So the English Devolution White Paper published December 2024 anticipates the abolition of the current two-tier system of local government and led to the subsequent invitation in February, which is included at Appendix A to the report, to submit proposals for a single tier of local governments by the 28th of November. And in essence, this report responds to that invitation. Important to say there was a passage of events through the course of the year as well. The interim plan being considered by Cabinet and Council in March, which first expressed support for the 451 model of local government reorganisation, and then a subsequent report which is included in the background links that committed to bringing a further report, which is this, with a full proposal for the 451 model, and also, as touched upon earlier, confirmed the appointment of specialist support in the form of KPMG as well. In terms of the full proposal, that is available. Obviously it's an extensive document in the background links along with the equality impact assessments. The 4 points I want to highlight are firstly collaboration, which was touched on by the chair in opening. But important to say that there has been a huge amount of partnership working between the district and borough councils, the 7 district and borough councils, and until very recently with Torbay as well. I think I've counted over 50 officers that have had input into that process as well, across a wide range of disciplines. So all the Section 151 officers, for example, the monitoring officers, but also in relation to specific service delivery and communications as well. And that process of peer review, peer support has been absolutely critical, I think, in terms of helping to shape and influence the proposal, as indeed have been 2 other things. One, the undoubted influence and support from KPMG and Pixel that has been really critical in terms of bringing their expertise, but also fundamentally the nearly 6,000 responses that were received to the public consultation exercise, as well as the wider stakeholder engagement as well. So for me, I love the term collaborative advantage. This for me is a great example of that, where the proposal in front of you, we couldn't have done that on our own. It is a product of that wider partnership working, and that has been fundamental in shaping and influencing how it comes in front of you today. The second point, as was touched on, is around the response to the exam questions, the 6 government criteria. Obviously, they are fundamental in terms of how government will consider the proposals that come forward. Obviously, I think we all know that Devon is a large, complex area, a population of more than 1.2 million, and in terms of the different configurations of local government across 6,000 square kilometres, there are undoubtedly different options which will have their own advantages and potential disadvantages as well. So throughout this, we've sought to respond in a balanced way to the 6 criteria. We have also, as detailed in the reports and in the full proposal, undertaken a full options appraisal as well, which has considered 8 different options of a variety of 2, 3 and 4 unitary models. And the outcome of that, again, has been to influence and shape the proposals, but ensure that we get the best possible balance, best possible equilibrium moving forward, bearing in mind this is a balance there, or a proposal that will need to last for a good number of years into the future. The third point, turning to the full proposal itself, as has been said, the Reimagining Devon, Believe in Better documents. Important to say that there's 2 particular aspects to this that relate to the recommendations. The first is the base case. So in responding to the invitation, it's very clear that you have to work first and foremost with the existing building blocks of local government, i.e. existing district boundaries, and the proposal in front of you very much does that in terms of putting forward a compliant proposal and puts forward 2 new unitary councils, one for Exeter and Northern Devon, so that includes obviously East Devon, Mid Devon, North Devon and Torridge, and the second for Torbay and Southern Devon, including Teignbridge, South Hams and West Devon. And that's alongside Plymouth City Council as is. Critically, you'll see also the recommendations relate to what's called the 451 plus model. So that's an acknowledgement, following the evidence and in terms of where this takes us ultimately, that the most enduring equilibrium, if you like, balance. Thank you, John, for that inspiration. Is around the need to allow for future growth of Plymouth into the future. So parts of 4 parishes that share a land boundary with Plymouth are identified within the joint local plan for urban extensions for future growth. So if you're familiar with that part of the world, Sherford Newtown, for example, but also Woolwell as well. So that option takes account of that planned growth and seeks to accommodate that within an expanded Plymouth boundary into the future. Important to emphasise that is a modification proposal over and above the baseline proposal that seeks to use those existing building blocks as well. The last point is around implementation, and it may feel odd when we obviously haven't voted on the proposals so far, but it's interesting from my perspective that on Monday afternoon there'll be a first meeting on implementation coming. This comes very quickly. Whilst April 2028 may feel some time away, that timeline I think will be pretty rapid, ultimately will feel pretty rapid. And therefore, the more we can do to prepare early and prepare well for that transition, the better. From my perspective, you'll see that the recommendations extend to cover that particular territory, that activity as well. And just to emphasise the timeline in paragraph 4.2, so we are expecting formal consultation on the various options that will be submitted in Devon to come forward, and this will be run by central government and probably likely in February next year. The critical moment will come in July when the Secretary of State makes his decision as to which option to pursue. That will then lead to the various legislation, the structural change order needed to implement the change, and that coming in concert with a Section 24 notice, which will limit this council's own financial decision-making autonomy, and then elections to a shadow authority in May 2027, before finally vesting day in April, 1st of April 2028. Important to say there will be further reports as key milestones are reached and to ensure everyone's fully aware of what that implementation and transition phase will look like, because just to emphasise, it will begin pretty soon, straight after this. So just turning to the recommendations, Chair, if my computer hadn't locked, these are to essentially, thank you, Matt, to approve the submission of the full proposal for the 451 model to the Secretary of State, to also, and there's a bit of a wording change here, to approve proposing the 451 plus option to the Secretary of State as well. Important to emphasise in terms of the following meeting to this, that those the third recommendation, which is to invite full council to endorse those proposals. And then finally, fourthly, to delegate authority to the Chief Executive in consultation with the Deputy Leader to meet the deadline of Friday, the 28th. And finally, that point around implementation, to delegate authority again to the Chief Executive in consultation with the Deputy Leader to progress that work around implementation, recognising that work starts pretty much the next day. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you for so fully setting out the journey that we've been on for the past year and where we've got to, and highlighting the key points there. Before I move to, I will be inviting the monitoring officer just to speak in a second before we open up to debate to the recommendations. Before I do that, I'll invite the Chief Executive, Tracy Hendren, if there's anything you might want to say, Tracy, at this point.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to really offer my support and echo some of the comments that have already been made. This has been a very short journey in sense of time. We didn't know until December last year that this was even something that was going to be considered, and we've had less than 11 months to get ourselves to a position where we have a formal proposal. What we did need to ensure as part of that approach was that that proposal was robust, that it was balanced, that it was transparent, and that it was easy for us to be able to share with you. So the way that we've dealt with that is we started by getting into a room as 11 local authorities. There's 11 authorities within Devon. The chief execs of those 11 authorities and the lead member for those 11 authorities got together to look at what that baseline would look like. How would we determine what figures we were using, what statistical data we were using? And we agreed a shared warehouse to enable us to do that. Once that had happened, we then had to look at how we were going to drive this forward. And I want to offer my thanks to Andy for stepping up as far as the 8 local authorities that have been working together on the 451 proposal from the beginning of this year. We haven't had additional resources across those local authorities to deliver against this. What we have had to do is to try and work this within a very short timeline, but demonstrate that the transparency and the balance is within that proposal. So those 8 authorities have then worked together on that data, that analysis, that statistical information, alongside the other authorities within Devon, to enable us to put our case together. As part of that approach, we're really proud of the fact that within those 8 authorities, not only did we have districts and boroughs, we also had an upper tier local authority that delivers currently our adults and children's services part provision within Devon, to enable us to ensure that we were looking at it from both sides of the coin, because when we become a principal authority, we will be responsible for not only the upper tier but the second tier authority. So the principal authority will deliver against both. So we're really pleased to say that within that room over the last 10 months, we've been able to be each other's critical friend. We've had 8 151 officers in the room when we've been talking budgets. We've had 8 monitoring officers in the room when we've been talking legal and governance. So we've really been able to ensure that we've been looking at this across how it balances for Devon. We've then engaged KPMG to not only look at the 6 criteria and ensure that the 451 meets that 6 criteria, we've asked them to look at 8 models across Devon and how they all compare and contrast against the exam questions, which has enabled us to continue with the 451 and put the 451 plus on the table because of how that works and for Devon moving forward as far as the data and the analysis is concerned, and the 6 exam questions that we've had to answer as part of this process. So I just wanted to add my support, John, and confirm how pleased I am that we've actually got to this stage. I'm sure Andy's exceptionally pleased too, to enable us to put our proposal in, subject to today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. I certainly echo the sentiment that you've just expressed there. So, right, I did say I was going to bring the monitoring officer in. So, Melanie Wellman.
Thank you. Andy has already alluded to the minor change to your second recommendation, which is to change the word supports to approve, proposing the 451 plus option. And then the 5th recommendation, which is about delegating authority to the Chief Executive in consultation with the Deputy Leader, we'd like to change that to progress work for the implementation of the local government reorganisation and delete the words initial preparatory. That's just one to tie in with the council recommendations, but also what does initial preparatory mean? It's not abundantly clear, so it's just about progressing the work for local government reorganisation. So that was it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Mel. I hope everybody's understood that. I think they're fairly straightforward, simple amendments, which tidy the recommendations up. So we're going to now go into discussion, debate, consideration. Just to say thank you to everybody who managed to either attend in person or come online into the briefing, the final briefing we had last week for the proposals. And just in case you haven't seen your emails today, just to draw your attention to an email I sent out over lunch, which picked up, I think it was 7 points that Councillor Goodman raised yesterday with officers. And I thought, in light of the questions that he posed, and they're linked directly to the submission document, I thought it might be helpful to colleagues if I circulated the questions along with the answers that Andy and colleagues had pulled together. I just thought that might be useful and help circumvent some of the questions that we may get tonight. So, anybody outside of Cabinet wish to come in? Right, first of all, Peter, Councillor Faithful.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if I wasn't listening. There'd be a consultation on all the options, the different exit. Did you say when that was likely to be?
Do you want to come in, Andy?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So we're anticipating maybe January, more likely February next year, and for that to run to probably May next year.
Okay. Anybody else? Steve, Councillor Gazzard.
Thank you, Chair. Right. We're here, obviously, to make a decision tonight. But my question is,
just to point out that we're here, obviously, in Cabinet to make a decision, and then at 6 o'clock we're obviously going to full council to do that as well.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, I agree with you.
Just thought I would make that clear to people watching in.
Yeah. All right. My only query is, Chair, is we've been discussing for a long time 451, and then suddenly we get 451 plus comes along. Now, how integral is having the plus in the 451?
Okay, before I bring probably Andy in, just to say that, yes, we started off, last January, I think it was, January, February time, with the initial assessment, which was 451, which has then gone through the evaluation and all of the work. And as that's progressed, and if you see, if one looks in the documentation, through the criteria evaluation that was applied to all of the 8 options that were put into the mix as part of this process, the 451 and 451 plus, the plus aspect, just came out slightly ahead of that, and option, can't remember what it was it F or A? I can't remember what the letter was. There were two others that came out just literally below it. And if you recall, I think you were on the call the other night, it was identified that we could apply, recommend to the Secretary of State that he uses his discretion, not just to take forward the base case of 451, which we still see there as a rock solid, but to use his discretion in order to apply a slight boundary change around Plymouth to create what's called the 451 plus. Now, I may have just completely confused everything, but I just ask Andy if he wants to try and unravel all of that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's a good question. So important to say that in terms of being a compliant bid, you have to start with existing building blocks, existing district boundaries. If I could guide you to Appendix 1 of the full proposal, that sets out the rationale for why the modification, that extra, if you like, the plus option is being proposed or recommended to you tonight, this afternoon. And I'm just going to read out the last paragraph from that appendix, if I can, which I think just encapsulates it. So it says, the 451 plus model offers a potential improvement on the base 451 proposal in some respects because it delivers greater balance, stronger alignment with functional geographies, enhanced community engagement, and a more resilient platform for future devolution and service delivery. These improvements are achieved without sacrificing the core strengths of the 451 model outlined in the main case: local identity, accountability, and high quality services. The evidence from the options appraisal demonstrates that 451 Plus is the most balanced model for Devon and is therefore a strong option for local government reorganisation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andy. And just to say that if you go to the Reimagining Devon documentation, all 299 pages of it, and I am going to test Councillor Goodman in a minute on a couple of pages and see if he can recall precisely what's written there. But if you go to page 267 through to page 271, you do have the Appendix 1 that Andy's just been referring to, which encapsulates the 451 plus aspect of this. So, anybody else outside of Cabinet? I'm not going to look at Councillor Goodman because I can see. No, it's Councillor Bailey, Brian Bailey.
I'm sorry to re-say this. I appreciate all the hard work that's been done by officers and yourself. It's a massive task. What I can't get is the basics. This system has been designed for metropolitan areas with lots of people in a very restricted area. We're trying to adopt the system that I've just mentioned into a huge urban area with not so many people. Therefore, with the urban areas, the cost per person is going to be considerably more. And I am struggling with the fact that our residents are going to have to handle this cost, which will be severe. We don't know exactly what it will be at the moment, but it's going to be very severe. And also the combined debt from the 11 authorities, as far as I can understand, will not be written off by the government. We'll have to somehow manage that ourselves. So you're starting off with a new authority, if it happens, with huge debt, more than tens of millions, probably hundreds of millions of pounds, which has got to be paid for. And this is my concern. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Do you want me to, perhaps I can go to the Finance, Director of Finance, I don't know whether you want to, whether there's anything in there you feel you're able to pick up, Simon?
Thank you, Chair. I suppose the only element I can pick up is those elements you're highlighting. There was a balance sheet review that took part of the analysis. So in coming up with the 451 proposal was seen as the best element in terms of looking at the balance sheets of all the other authorities, bringing them together, including those debt figures, but also looking at council tax base, business rates base. And this is why 451 has come up as a better option with our own assessment, but also that with KPMG. So you're right in terms of those debts don't disappear, but neither does all the income lines as well and all the various service levels. So it's seen as a viable option, and you can see the savings that we're showing in our proposal in terms of the amalgamation of those authorities. So in terms of the future finances going forward, there are significant savings being proposed that do then get reinvested back into service delivery.
You may for a second, Councillor Bailey. Brian, can you use your mic, please?
Sorry, I'm concerned about the interim period between the savings occurring and running the authority, such as it is, for maybe 5 or 10 years. There appears to be a black hole in the finance situation. There's nothing you can grab and say, well, this is going to get me out of trouble for the next 5 years, because the money's not there. Thank you for your explanation, by the way.
So through the chair. So the mobilisation costs are included within the table. So the total cost for implementation, if you like, is just short of 74 million, but the annual savings are in the order of 77.1 million. So there, and you can see that going through on an annual basis. So there is savings there available to finance those mobilisation costs. There are some front funding needed, but we've allowed for that in our calculations in terms of the reserve levels that are available, and also things through council tax harmonisation. So that has been worked out. There isn't the black hole for the beginning period. The mobilisation costs are in there, factored in for the years they hit, and so are the savings as well, Councillor.
Thank you, Simon. And just to say, Councillor Bailey, just to remind you that even if we were remaining as the District Council ad infinitum, then we are already in a couple of years' time, because of the changes to the funding arrangements by the government, we are already looking at a bit of a cliff edge anyway. So just standing still is going to bring problems for us, let alone any of the other 10 authorities across Devon. And some of them have got bigger problems than we do today. Did I see Councillor Barlow? Did I see your hand? And then I see Councillor Ingham, and then I see Councillor Goodman.
Thank you, Chair. I know everyone's got their opinion, whether we should be doing this or not. And I often quote, it's like communism. In theory, it works. In practice, will be maybe a different thing. But the thing we asked our officers back in March to do was to look at 451. It was presented by the leader then, who has changed his mind. But admittedly, that's what we asked our officers to do. They have done this work. They have come back with it. We put it to the government accepted it. We had to then come up with the business plan, which this is. And even if we were to say no to this, what does it mean? The other councils that are part of this are going to put it in. So the government will still see it. We will just, I don't know, not have a say. Who cares? I suppose if they were the government, they wouldn't even listen. I can't imagine if we didn't say anything. We were asked to, this is what we agreed to put in. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no real choice tonight. You have to support what we asked our officers to do. That is my opinion on it. I might not agree with whether I think it's for the best, but this is what we asked our officers to do. You're not giving us a choice of whether we vote for something else. It's either recommend or not. So, yeah, I think you should support this. I think this is what we asked our officers to do. And as I said, even if we don't put it in, it'll still go to the government. At least the government's got a choice now. They can have 911, 4, whatever, I'd give up, but 451 plus, and choose which one they want. If they haven't already chosen already and know what they want to do. And quite rightly, we need something to happen because we don't want to not have something to happen, because otherwise we're going to have some very difficult decisions to make. And I don't want to do that either.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. I'm just looking at my colleagues who've been working on this all through the year, and I'm just wondering which one's Stalin, which one's Lenin, which one's Mao. It's just, I'll leave that to somebody else to determine. So, Councillor Ingham.
Thank you, Chair. Through yourself, I'd like to ask Simon one question. Through 451, after 2028, on a kind of 10 years after vision, are you not very worried indeed that you may well create a haves Devon and a haves not Devon?
Through the chair, I'm not a very big question there, Councillor. From a financial point of view, as I explained earlier, looking at the various data available, looking at population growth, looking at business base, the 451 and then the 451 plus, and it's a word that you'll see throughout the proposal in terms of balanced. So in terms of the haves and have-nots, it comes very close to a proportionate approach in terms of the new authorities.
So you genuinely believe
I'm going with
that
the
will
evidence,
not
Chair.
occur?
That's right, Councillor. I'm going with what's the data that was analysed, what's been put forward in the proposal. I'm taking that information.
I'm surprised that can I come back? With,
Well, you are.
I stopped myself because you may not want me to. Are you not?
Ben, sorry, Councillor Ing, do you mind just speaking closer into the
Sorry,
mic?
yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Are you not concerned that the Devon County Council obviously do not agree with you at all and have got a completely different strategy based on trying to implement the intent of national government's request through their word, devolution, even if we disagree with it? What you're doing is manifestly different from the county council.
So from my perspective, Chair, but I'm sure others may want to come in as well, we've, I think, objectively looked at what it's been explained, the criteria, the exam questions that we went through. We've used independent support through KPMG, but also particularly on the financial side, Pixel. We've done a lot of analysis in terms of using 7 finance officers, 7 chief execs, 7 monitoring officers, particularly using Toolbay as well to help us with those upper tier services. And in terms of a different approach being taken, different proposals going in, I can only back and justify the proposals put forward in our business case, in that that's the ones I've been part of, that's the ones I've been involved in. But I think as members, you can look at it as a complete picture in our proposal, in that those other options are identified and have also been analysed, and the conclusions are then set out in our proposal.
Thank you, Simon. And just to add, Councillor Ingham, I think the difficulty is for any of us here who've been involved either up to here in it, as some of the officers have been, or people like myself slightly less so. I think the difficulty for us is that we can't view this through the lens that other councils are viewing it through. All we can do is view it through the same lens as the other 6 districts, alongside KPMG, alongside Pixel. And I think we feel collectively confident that what we have in front of us is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And that's the best that we can do. And how others see it, I think, is for them to explain. And I think we rely upon the data and the evidence that is in the document and the links behind the document. So, on to then Councillor Goodman.
Yes, I think most of my questions I'll have later, but a couple of them now. First of all, on page 11, I was really concerned with accuracy, that we say there are 5,900 people with public engagement, which was extensive. I don't think 0.64% of Devon is extensive public engagement. And Andrew, you said just now that, quite rightly so, that every unitary suggestion to the government will form a consultation. Do we really believe that 4 consultations will take place January or February and be completed by May? 4 different, because my understanding is each one that goes to government will carry a consultation. How do we think they could do that in 5 months? The other thing is, you mentioned just now that work will carry on after this vote. I think we have to be careful what work we do, and I think we need to be more specific, because if it's a 541 and 911, they're different ones, and I just think we need to be very careful what work that would be, because what we don't want to do is spend a lot of time and money and on things that actually would be better left until we know a bit more. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman. Before I bring Andy in, I would just say that the question you asked about the numbers on page 11 was actually answered, wasn't it, in the response that came back and circulated?
But the point is, the actual report says extensive, but 0.94% of the population is not extensive.
I hear what you say. If this is going to fall or pass on the basis of one word, then we're in big difficulties, aren't we? But I take your point. I hear it. So, Andy, I don't know if you want to pick up on what Councillor Goodman's raised.
Yeah, just on the 2 other points, Chair. So I think in relation to the consultation, it's worth bearing in mind that the government has now completed the consultation in relation to Surrey and put forward a preferred option. Recently went live, though, were the 6 consultations for what are known as the devolution priority areas. And it was interesting. I happened to just look at the Essex one, for example, when you see a single document that details, I think there were at least 5 different options that have been put forward. So they're all listed in terms of what option is being consulted upon, who it's been supported by, and that all sits within a single document, if that makes sense. So the government has managed to get 6 of those live at the same time in the kind of next wave, if that makes sense. I think the last point was a really strong one for me, really important, because absolutely, we're in a period now between now and July when we don't know. I think the way it's been suggested and the way it's worked in other areas, you have to approach the work you do in that period on an options agnostic basis, which seems very wise, because there are certain foundational elements, who's got what systems, for example, that are no regrets areas of activity that absolutely will pay dividends later because you're utilising the time available, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Andy. Right. I'm just looking around. It's coming up to 5 o'clock. We're going to have to vacate this room, I would have thought, by around about 5:30-ish in order to, at the latest, I'm being told, in order to facilitate the setting up of councils. So I need to let Cabinet come in. But before I do that, I'm seeing Councillor Rickson. Is there anybody else outside of Cabinet who hasn't asked a question, who's got a burning question before I then bring in Cabinet afterwards? No, so Councillor Rickson.
Well, this is more of a perception rather than a question, I guess. But I believe the government is banging on all the time about not wanting to raise taxes on working people. Yet I believe the impact elsewhere of these government reorganisations has been quite a hike in council tax. So isn't this a stealth tax by one means or another? Is this the impact that it has had elsewhere, or is it just my perception?
I think it's rather difficult to ask any of our officers to respond to that, which has got a bit of a political bent to it, if I may say. But we are all we are doing is responding to what the government asked us to do at the beginning of the year, giving us 6 exam questions has been referenced. And I have heard the Chief Executive say many times that if we don't engage in this process, then I think you say the phrase, Tracy, something about being done to. You say it better than I can.
That's exactly it, John. We're in a position here that if we don't put a proposal in, we cannot have our voice heard around the table. We will be done to. So this is going to happen irrespective of whether we put a proposal forward. So the best option for us is to look at the information provided, the exam questions that we have to answer, and put our proposal forward based on that and a balanced response to ensure that our voice is heard.
Thank you, Tracy. Right, so into Cabinet. Any of my colleagues want to put their hand up? No? Okay, right. I take it that you've heard what colleagues have said outside. Oh, Councillor Young.
Reluctantly, I'll go first. Is this the greatest mistake or a most brilliant reinvention of running local government? Time will tell on that. But privatisation of the water board does come to mind. Was that a good invention or not? I don't know. We kicked off this journey 11 months ago. And my first reaction was to the government announcement was that One Devon would be the best choice. This fits into a lot of the proposals that we've been looking at with One Waste and Recycling company running the whole of Devon, having the coast and flood management all run by One Devon. So that was my first reaction. But then you look at the consequences of having a One Devon, possibly 60 councillors running the whole of Devon. That would mean towns would be highly represented with many councillors from each town and city, and rural areas will have one councillor for about 5 or 6 parishes. So is that the best way to run a council, specifically a council that is renowned for its rural beauty? Should it be run by predominantly town and city councillors? So looking at 451, that gives the better mix, and I would thank all officers for their time and efforts looking into the proposals. So that is why I will be supporting 451. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. I can't say I'm particularly enthused by the LGR concept overall. Obviously, that's a decision of central government and one that is not a new one. Although the timescales and the pressure that's been applied in order to deliver it at the pace that's being expected, I feel personally is an unwise approach given the complexity of the challenge and the task at hand. And I feel that there may very well be areas of this country of which I think the rural areas are probably top of that list, who may find that this overall doesn't necessarily serve them as well as the current arrangement in the future, but only time will tell. We are where we are, and we've been given a task to follow through with. And I'm reassured actually that we are looking at a proposal which is a variation on the one that was put forwards at the start of the year, because I actually feel that it sets my mind at ease that actually the work that's been done has been critical and has scrutinised the exam questions well, and recognised that actually there might have been a slightly better solution. So I think from my perspective that's reassuring. I'm obviously unhappy with the democratic deficit that comes from scaling up local government to the extent it is. However, of the options that are on the table, this gives us the best possible route forwards. I don't like it, but I think it's the best we've got so far. So as it stands, I support where we're at. I don't like the whole concept, but I like what we've got in front of us. And also I'd like to thank yourself and the officers, not just for the work that we've done, which I think you've done a great job in pulling this all together and working collaboratively with so many others, but also for reaching out to the town and parish councils in the events that you've had over the last few weeks, so that they understand that the proposal that's on the table today, what that actually means, because I think it's really confusing. And I think part of the reason we've seen, as Councillor Goodman has picked up on around the consultation, the public consultation, low numbers, I think that's partly because people haven't been as engaged. This has come as an unknown to so many members of the public, and even now, people don't really understand what it's all about. So there's only ever going to be so much engagement until people realise what the direct impact is on them moving forwards, and that's not going to happen just yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Yes, absolutely. I concur with the point you make there about how much the public know. And at the best of times, let's be honest, local government isn't sexy, really, with most members of the public. So noise is off from Councillor Barlow there. Back in your seat, Councillor Barlow. So, Councillor Hookway, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so we are where we are with this process. It's not ideal. I think we're fairly agreed on that. But for me, the question which is essential and does to some point hark back to what Councillor Jackson was saying about residents. I think the key question for us is what option out of all these proposals, what option is in the best interests of all residents? And we've heard the term implementation going on. We are going to have service delivery is going to be moved across to various one or two unitaries perhaps. We must ensure that service delivery is as near seamless as possible. And I think that the recommendation, the 451 plus, is one of those proposals that is likely to give us fairly seamless and undisrupted service delivery. I think if we consider some of the other proposals that are here, then we are at real risk of having services that will be either fragmented or severely disrupted in their transition. And the two perhaps that are the most vulnerable to being disrupted are adult health and social care and children's services under SEND. And there has been some improvement recently in the work being done on adult health and social care and in children's services. There's a long way to go, but there has been a lot of work gone in the background. That would be put at risk, and we would be back again, perhaps to where we were a year, 18 months, 2 years ago. And what concerns me about that is that these services in particular are aimed at the most vulnerable people and serve the most vulnerable people. And I don't want to see those services and those small improvements being put at risk. So I think it's really important that we consider what is the best interests for residents, which option allows us to deliver them as seamlessly or as near seamlessly as possible and avoid fragmentation and disruption. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Quay. I would agree with you, and one of the biggest challenges, whatever shape Devon ends up in, and it will be the Secretary of State's decision, maintaining a seamless service delivery transition is the key, and it's our number one priority. And that, I think, is part of the work that Andy alluded to, that basically starts the day after we make our submission to whatever it is to the Secretary of State. And that's going to be the same for all of the 11 Devon councils. We all have to make sure our services continue to be delivered in whatever shape or fashion is determined for the future. Councillor Ledger.
Thanks very much, Chair. I've thought a lot about this, really. And then I did what any other 34-year-old tech-savvy individual would do and put it into ChatGPT. So I spent some time downloading all the documents, put all both ours, Devon County's and Exeter's proposals into ChatGPT. And it spat out the answer that the 451 was the most credible. Now, I'll quote it. So for the question that I asked, and it was an unbiased question, it was, which of the proposals are the better option for local government for the East Devon area moving forward? And what I thought is we should be looking at it through this lens of East Devon residents. We are here to represent them at the end of the day. And it's what option is best for them moving forward. And the response came back that for East Devon's long-term local government, the 451 or 451 plus proposal looks better overall because it gives you a principal council that matches your place, strengthens local democracy, and positions you strongly for future devolution, provided that the transition is properly managed and an ambitious savings programme is deliverable. And I think that's the kind of key areas. As Andy Wood alluded to earlier, there are advantages and disadvantages for all the models that get put forward. But if you are looking at it holistically, this is the best proposal, in my opinion, not just ChatGPT's, that we can put forward. It is, I think the delivery is key though. It's whether we can get as Councillor Hookway put it, the children's services and the adult social care right, because it will be fragmenting that service. And so the delivery is so important, it's so critical to the success of us moving forward. So really for me, it's less about the success of the proposals, it's the implementation of it, whether we're going to actually see the success that we all hope will be achieved or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ledger. So, in summary, we could have saved an awful lot of time, money and resources, a lot of Andy's life, by just asking AI to write this. Okay, there's a way forward then, isn't there? And I would say to you, your poor young child, Daddy needs to get out more. So Councillor Olive.
Well, there's a first time for everything, Chair. I'm not sure I've ever heard a trade unionist advocating for replacing jobs with AI before. But yeah, there we go. LGR is a first time for a lot of things, it would seem. I'm going to speak very briefly because otherwise I'll go on a rant because I think this entire thing is a complete waste of time and money. But there we go. I will support this proposal, and I'll support it for one reason, and it goes to the heart of one of the reasons that I am a Liberal Democrat, and that's the principle of devolution. I don't really believe this proposal is devolution of itself. I think it's centralisation, and I've talked about that before very much. But if the principle of devolution is about putting power in the place closest to the people who are going to be affected by the decisions of those people with that power, then as far as the evidence before me seems to say, the 451 proposal is the best of the options that are out there for doing that in a way that doesn't financially compromise one or other of the authorities in the proposal that are set out. And I draw that explicitly as a comparison to, for example, the Exeter proposal with its rural and coastal authority, which I think would be an absolute financial disaster, frankly. So that's why I will be supporting this tonight, for no other reason than because I think it's the least anti-democratic of the proposals that are out there. I would, if I may, make a plea that we do whatever we can in the governance that comes forward for those authorities subsequently through the implementation phase, that we do as much as we can to protect the rural voice. A number of other members have already said it, but particularly where we are forced to restrict ourselves to the arbitrary number, and it is an arbitrary number of 100 councillors by that ridiculous Electoral Commission guidance, which isn't based on a shred of evidence whatsoever. It is absolutely imperative that we protect the voice of places like Wimple and Rockbeer, that I represent 2,200 people in a district of 134,000, let alone a unitary of hundreds and hundreds of thousands that would be formed even under the 451 proposal. So a plea from me there, Chair, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Olive. So the proposals in front of us, you've just downed with faint praise there. But the serious point that you've made about, and others have made about the voice of our rural population, not just here, but across the whole of Devon. It has been something that has been very much at the forefront of the discussions that the officers have been having trying to develop this. And you're quite right. We have Boundary Commission framework that we have to operate in, and how that helps us, I genuinely have no idea, but we are in a position where we've got various criteria that we need to abide by, because I think our concern is if we don't meet the criteria, then potentially we get thrown into the waste paper basket before anybody even opens the first page. So I think that brings to the end the cabinet interventions. Right, okay. So I think we are then moving towards the recommendations. You have 5 recommendations in front of you. Just to remind you that the second one, the first word support, thank you, has been changed to approves. And then within the 5th recommendation, in the second line, we've taken out the 2 words initial preparatory out of that. Everybody clear, understand? I did say at the beginning I was going to move it, but on the hindsight, I'm thinking probably best given AI. Or did you say may I? I wasn't quite sure. But I think given my role in this, I think it's probably unwise. So I'm going to invite, before I even finish, you don't know what I was going to ask, Councillor Olive. Councillor Olive, are you proposing?
I was going to offer to propose for you, yes, Chair.
Oh, what a wonderful role I've given you there. And who's going to second? Councillor Young, thank you. So it's proposed and it's seconded. You know the 5 recommendations in front of you. These will be then forwarded imminently to full council. So we will rerun all of this again in 40 minutes, deep joy. So before we go to the vote, Councillor Hayward.
Can I propose some amendments, Chair? I'm only joking, please.
I'm going to ask that we cut the live stream while I take you out, and you don't know what you did to my heart rate then. So, right, seriously, we have the proposals in front of us as slightly amended, as drawn to our attention by the monitoring officer. We have a proposer, we have a seconder. So I'm now going to invite all those in favour, please show. That is unanimous, so I'm not even going to look for abstentions or anyone against. So that then brings us to the conclusion of this meeting's business. And I would like to thank everybody from taking part. Just say to colleagues in the room, just bear with us. You are live until the live stream ends any second now. but we will be told when it has. So thank you for everybody in the room